to our future. I know you don't completely understand what's happening right now, but you can feel that something is deeply wrong in America. I know that's scary, and sometimes I'm scared too. But that's why I want to tell you about the women in our family. Because they are the strongest people I know. These past few years have been tough. Powerful men who think they can do whatever they want. They laughed at us, thought they had us beat. But the women in our family, we marched. We took to the streets, and 5 million of us raised our voices. I hope you remember that day as one of the proudest moments of my life. And we didn't just march. We organized, reclaimed our time, held firm on every important issue facing this country, supported every ally doing what's right. The women in our family, we won't be silenced. And when the men in power saw that we were starting to change things, they panicked. They tried to scare us. But their time was up. The women in our family are a part of a movement that's sending shockwaves through every campus, office, every chamber in America. So that hopefully you will never have to face what we did. The women in our family, we rise like the water, high enough, strong enough to break down every single wall put in our way.
The Women's March, folks, is 30 days away. So we're happy now to be joined by the COO of the Women's March, Rachel O'Leary Carmona. Rachel, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, so we're getting everything ready, aren't we?
We are.
30 days out. So, I mean, when you think about it, the holidays coming up, next week everything's going to be shut down in New Year's. So really, if you think about losing next week, it's less than 30 days, isn't it?
Yep, that's right.
So how's the mobilization going?
I mean, it's going well. We have a lot of partners, I think over 100 now, and each one of them is committed to bringing some folks. We've got folks that are RSVP'd with us. We've got folks that are just going to show up who are on our comment thread saying, like, I'm coming. So, it's moving. And we know that, one of the things that we know from the past is that when this administration begins to encroach upon people's rights, that people will push back. And so as we're coming up on the holidays and we have the administration threatening a whole host of a number of new indignities that people would have to face, we know that with everyone that kind of comes, the numbers will go up and in our favor because the people are through with taking these abuses sitting down.
You all are also unveiling a new women's agenda, a new policy platform, aren't you?
That's right.
Tell us a bit about it, if you would.
Sure. So one of the things that we were thinking about as we were thinking about what does moving into year 2 look like, as a protest movement, understanding that in our country, protest movements, have not made the turn into advocacy as often as I think we would like to see. Now, we have seen Women's March do that, and we've been building power in states all across the country, but we wanted to think, okay, well, what does really putting a flag in the sand here and saying we are going to mobilize people and build power, and then we are going to take that power and make sure that you feel it and understand it. And so when we kind of thought about that, we thought, okay, well, what that needs is a policy agenda, but a specific kind, not the kind where we're saying, okay, we're going to eradicate violence, although violence needs to be eradicated. We are saying our policy agenda is going to be It's going to be a work plan. It's going to be actionable and achievable in the next 2 years. And for folks who are elected, who were just elected, folks who are trying to get reelected, folks who are running for the first time, it does not matter. It does not matter what side of the aisle that you sit on. It does not matter who you are. What matters is, here is your work plan. Here is what fighting for women's rights looks like as defined by a broad agenda, by a broad coalition of 60 organizations and individuals who are the closest to doing work on these areas. And if you are not in line with our agenda, then you are on our list. And we will make sure there are swift political consequences for you.
So I have to ask this. I mean, you all have been moving forward. You have these unity principles. Quarter before the hour, folks, quick calls for Rachel O'Leary Carmona, COO of the Women's March.com. Get involved, get organized to go and find out where also marches are taking place in your locale. We'll get to that momentarily. You all are still getting support, still organizing, still mobilizing. And so, for lack of a better word, all of the recent controversies, which quite frankly, I think are really about undermining the power and success of women at this hour, you all have been able to overcome that and really keep people involved, correct?
Right. I mean, we actually have grown our membership, grown our chapters, and have over 130 sister marches all across the country. We welcome the conversations for some of these issues that have been not only a part of the conversations that we have had internally, but conversations that have been happening for decades in the movement without any real way forward. And one of the things that we are cognizant of is that attacks on Women's March are pretty consistent with attacks on other organizations and things like that. And so as we continue to persevere, we also intend to leave a roadmap for what it looks like for organizations to be able to withstand this type of pressure, because if you weren't making impact, they wouldn't care about you, right?
Right. No, that's absolutely true. I noticed in the big Washington Post article too, you acknowledge that there are unity principles and that the leadership is expanding, and to put a finer point on some of the concerns and controversies that have been raised. Jewish women are involved. Jewish women are in leadership and going to be in leadership, correct?
Correct. Jewish women have been involved with Women's March from the very beginning, and we're a part of the authors of the original unity principles. But what I think folks forget is that those documents and indeed the scaffolding and the infrastructure for the organization was built to support a single-day march. And so when that single-day march began to sprawl into an organization that is now pushing 2 years old, some of the foundational documents and infrastructure just didn't really fit anymore. And as the attacks from the Trump administration have grown and shifted and morphed, if you remember correctly, right after the march, before and during, we were talking about a Muslim ban, and there were protests at the airports and attacks on folks' rights. I believe it was the first executive order that he signed. And now we're really talking about a different border, and we're talking about a different group of people, and we're talking about advanced rhetoric, white nationalist rhetoric that has spurred an increase of anti-Semitism across the country. And so now we need to make sure that the unity principles, which was always envisioned as a kind of a living document, reflects the realities of the threats of what we're facing right now. And some of those original authors are still involved both with the policy platform and with the amendments to the unity principles. And so we are really thankful for our partners for standing with us as we, as we figure this out. To be frank, there's no roadmap. There has never been an intersectional feminist movement before. It's always left behind broad swaths of people, particularly Black and brown women. And
that's a good point.
And we're working, step by step as we learn how to do this as well. And so we're glad that people are committed to learning with us.
That's a profound point, too. Rachel O'Leary Carmona, folks, 12 minutes before the hour. Quick calls on the Women's March, 866-99-SERIOUS. that's a profound point. I guess I really had never thought about that. There hasn't been an intersectional women's movement. And so yeah, these are going to be a part of the growing pains, and those who don't want the women's movement to succeed. See, what I've always been saying, the people who deny there was a wave at all are some of the same people attacking the women's march. I don't think that's a coinky dink, y'all. Uh, but we want people to get involved in this. You said there are 130 sister marches being planned?
Yeah, last time I looked, it could be larger.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. So, folks, you want to go to womensmarch.com and see if you can't make it to D.C. I'm going to D.C., even though I'm not a woman, but I'm a feminist. I will be in D.C. broadcasting. That's the plan. But those you can't make it to D.C., that's fine, too, because what happened in 2017, there were women's marches all over the world, and that helped the numbers swell all over the world. Do you think what happened, Rachel O'Leary Carmona, in 2017 played a significant and a great role in what happened just this past November in the midterms?
I don't think I know, because a lot of the women who ran said we're running because, we were so excited by Women's March. And
Right.
so, and I don't say that, as a way to take credit, from the work from the national team, although the national team does work very hard. But what I want to say is that there was a global feminist uprising that we saw, and there's just no way to understate that. And to to say that there was absolutely a wave of women, thousands of women ran, hundreds of women won. With margins that are larger than we've seen in the House since Watergate.
Right.
There's no way to frame the midterm elections of 2018 as anything but historic for women. And what I believe is that Women's March has, in the marches, in D.C., the sister marches across the country and across the world, has broadened the political imagination of women and progressives and femmes and allies,
Right.
In a way that I think is historic. And I am interested in seeing how that broader political imagination can bring us to things that we have not before envisioned. For example, we see Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez talking about a Green New Deal.
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine that 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think we're dreaming differently. I think we're thinking differently, and we're certainly strategizing differently. And so I think that's going to bring us different outcomes.
The CEO of the Women's March, Rachel O'Leary Carmona, with us, folks. The video that some of you saw, if you're watching our stream, by the way, on Twitter and YouTube, we're still logged off Facebook at request of the NAACP. But Twitter and YouTube / Make It Plain, the video you saw and are still seeing was sent to me. Bob Bland sent it to me last night. It's an incredible and very moving video. And I hope everybody watches it. As a matter of fact, Rachel, one of the areas, if I'm not mistaken, that one of the issues is being reopened as a part of the agenda is the Equal Rights Amendment, is it not?
It's one of the things that we will be surprised if we're not on there. I haven't seen the finalized version of it. The committees are still working.
Okay.
But I will say that there's a lot of grassroots support for working on that as an issue. And in addition to the national agenda, we are going to translate that into a 50-state strategy. And so it will be shocking to me if that doesn't make an appearance there, and also in some of the 50-state agenda translations, because we are very close on the ERA, and there's just a lot of interest in pursuing it.
Yeah, so that's all of this is very, very important, folks. Again, we invite you to go to womensmarch.com, RSVP for the march, see where buses are, see where you can participate in your locale. If you can't make it to Washington, D.C., we all want to be there and be supportive. And if you don't mind, Rachel, first of all, it's a pleasure to talk to you. But what you were saying about this being the first intersectional women's movement. That's an important historical point. You mind if I borrow that and talk about that from time to time? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. Womensmarch.com, 30 days out. Folks, it's very, very important for women, for all of you to get behind this march, one, and for men, for you all to become feminists and support women. Women's reproductive health is on the line. Voting rights are on the line. All of these things are important, and we want to get behind them. Womensmarch.com. Rachel, thank you for joining us. We're going to keep promoting it and keep talking about it, and good luck with the mobilizing, okay?
Thank you for having me. I'll see you there.
All right, wonderful. Take care now. Enjoy your day.
Thanks.
All right, bye-bye. Okay, so that is the Women's March. Don't forget, folks, go to womensmarch.com. Don't meet us there. Beat us